Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Leger's Lottery Retail Recovery, What to Expect in 2021 webinar. My name, for those who don't know me, Simon Jaworski. I'm the head of the Leger USA Lottery and Gaming Division and an almost 20-year veteran of the lottery research industry. Today's session will encompass new findings from primary research combined with the best thought leadership from the three key pillars of lottery sales. So branded convenience stores, independent C-stores, and lottery sales. And we'll have some research insights, panel feedback, and then hopefully some time for the panel to answer some of your questions at the end. Please don't hesitate to use the questionnaire box on the GoToWebinar app if you have something that you would like to get to the panel's feedback on, and everybody else is going to be muted outside of the panel. Our panel today is comprised of four leading lights in the lottery and gaming realm. First up, we have Lance Anderson, who's the Assistant Director of Sales for the Washington Lottery. Lance leads the activities of Washington's Lottery Sales Division, including the supervision of corporate account managers, statewide retailer projects, and activities for the 5 regional offices. These activities include establishing sales program goals and objectives, monitor and measure sales and service, and operations progressing towards the agency's goals. Lance's work history includes 15 years in the beverage, the beer and wine industry, and 17 years in the lottery industry. And that in itself is odd because in my personal experience, it's usually the lottery that drives you to drink and not the other way around. So well done, Lance, for bucking the trend. Secondly, we have Mike Brazier, the owner of Rudy's. Rudy's is one of the largest and most successful convenience stores in Texas, and Mike will offer a unique perspective from the independent lottery retailer side. However, his Rudy's is not to be confused with Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue, another huge Texas brand, which now allows you to eat ribs without a mask on. Third, we have Bob Hornberger. Bob is the Senior Resource Support Lead, try saying that after a couple, focused on lottery for Wawa, whose job entails identifying and developing process improvement and efficiencies all across the store operations. Wawa is one of the fastest growing convenience stores on the East Coast of America. Bob created the training, installation, and implementation program for rolling out lottery to stores in Wawa's 5 key operating states and Washington, D.C. For those unfortunate enough who have never had a Wawa hoagie, it is unmatched. They are the Jaworski family's personal favorites. And last, but by no means least, we have my second favorite Australian after Crocodile Dundee, Mr. Jason Allsopp. Jason is Leger's latest recruit and one of the lottery and gaming industry's leading lights. Jason is going to go through some key research findings from Leger's biweekly omnibus on the state of retail from the perspective of the consumer during COVID, and I urge you to take it away, Jason.
Hey, thanks so much for that, Simon. I appreciate that. I'm a little bit disappointed that I'm only second favorite, but you know, we'll take that as it comes. But anyway, thanks for the warm welcome, Simon. Really excited today to talk to you a little bit about, to your point there, what do we expect in 2021 with the recovery from COVID? So I've got a few slides that I'm just going to go through today, and let's do that. To Simon's point, as a quick introduction, we're the largest Canadian-owned polling and market research and analytics firm, but with a massively growing presence in the US. And today's presentation is really going to focus on the United States. Just to set the ball rolling here, you know, to Simon's point, we did some work on our omnibus back in the middle of February, and the results you're going to see today are representative to the population of the United States. But what are we here to talk about today? We're here to talk about the retail. We've got, you know, some amazing retailers on our panel, but I guess just the level set, we want to talk about the fact that, you know, retailers provide so many different products to when people walk through those doors. There's cigarettes, there's alcohol, there's candy, there's chocolate bars, there's cans of Coke, there's baked goods, there's all these different things. And as players, we expect a ton from our retailer, okay? And the lottery expects a ton from our retailer. So we have to understand what is going on from retailers and as well as from the mind of the consumer to better understand what can we do to sort of move forward here. So that's what today's conversation is going to be around. And given obviously all the impact of COVID, what does that mean moving forward? What do we expect? So I really want to leave you with 3 key takeaways. I'm a big believer in just like boiling it down to the point. What's my first key takeaway today? The first key takeaway is that despite COVID being around, it doesn't at all mean or represent the death of brick and mortar for lottery sales. Let me tell you why. So when we talk a little bit more about like where lottery players have purchased in the past year, we know that 14 states right now are online, and obviously there's other states out there who, including Texas, who offer the Jackpocket solution. Where are players buying their tickets? And as you can see here, 87% of past year players have bought exclusively through the bricks and mortar. We can see that 8% have combined that with online, and then only 5% have bought online only. So we can see here that the best part of 95% of our population, our lottery playing population, have bought it through bricks and mortar, but the vast majority of that is exclusively through bricks and mortar. So any consideration, any thought that there was a lot of a movement towards the online realm, yes, absolutely, some of that is happening, but by far the vast majority of ticket sales are executed through the bricks and mortar. And as you could expect, you know, even the youngest people, the ones that were always trying to capture those unicorns of life, the ones we're trying to get back into the fold and then re-engaged, and more of them, even those guys are still buying at a physical retailer store. So the reality here is that despite COVID being around, it does not by any stretch of the imagination mean the death of bricks and mortar. That's the first point I want to make today. The second point I want to make today is, given COVID, there's absolutely been a move towards cashless. And those people who are using cashless, they're doing what we want them to do. They're adding to their basket. And from a retailer, this is incredibly promising news. So let's talk a little bit more about that. When we ask people who have been playing about how COVID has impacted their purchasing behavior from a payment perspective, 26% of them indicate they're now using debit or credit more than cash at retailers. Why does that matter? Well, clearly from a safety perspective, from a sanitary perspective, it's much easier to tap and go when we're buying our lottery tickets, more so than handing over cash. Who's doing that? Well, again, there's a little bit of an age difference here, but again, it's those younger people. We talked earlier about those younger people who are trying to engage more. We know that younger people have always told us across any qualitative exercise that we've ever done, I don't have cash on hand, I'm using debit and credit. And these people are overwhelmingly more likely to be using and transitioning their lottery play behavior to debit and credit. And we know that give or take 34 states right now are offering debit card and 21 are using credit cards. So at the end of the day, this transition to more cashless options is going to benefit the lottery. So let's talk a little bit more about that and who's actually doing it today. So I wanted to sort of level set a little bit about, is there a difference between who's migrating towards cashless today? So you can see here, this is just the data that we collected. And, you know, when we look at across the entire United States, about 35% have played Scratch, 34 and 33 respectively for Powerball and Mega Millions. And then it falls off the cliff. This is no great surprise. This is what we expect. Basically, anybody who buys lottery in the US is buying one of the big three games. They're buying either Scratch or Powerball and Mega Millions. And then there's another group of players, more likely to be our core players, who are buying some of the smaller games, be it in-state lotto, any of the daily games, maybe even Keno. But what we're really trying to understand here is there a difference between those who are using cash versus those who are playing cashless? And when we talk a little bit about the big three games that I spoke about, you can see there's no difference, right? What does that tell us? It tells us that if I'm a core or there's a lot of casual players, you know, those peripheral players that come in and out of the market. We have a $1.6 billion jackpot for Mega Millions or Powerball. We see a lot of people coming in, but even those peripheral players in those instances are using cash or cashless. But it's really the smaller games where we see a big distinction between those who are using cash and those who are transitioning to cashless. And what does that mean? It's really the core players, those bread and butter players that we rely upon constantly for our sales. It's those guys who are transitioning more towards the cashless option. And this is no great surprise. When we speak to players qualitatively, we ask them about, you know, should the lottery offer debit or credit? And to a person, absolutely. They recognize that they want to play cashless, and COVID has just accelerated that belief. So the other thing we really sort of wanted to understand here is, okay, am I going there just to buy lottery? Am I going there to buy lottery and something else? Or am I going there to buy something else and then I'm adding lottery to my basket? And so when we break that out amongst our players, we can see that give or take 32% of our players only go there to buy lottery, and then about 68% somewhat evenly split between those who go to buy lottery and then buy something else, or then go to buy something else and then buy lottery. And I want to kind of focus on that 68% if I can, because there's a big difference between those two groups of people. So I'm calling them basket fillers, someone who's going there to buy something and then adding to that basket. Regardless of their motivation for walking through the door, they're adding something to their basket. So I want to talk about that for a little bit, if I may. What this data tells me is if I'm going there to buy lottery and I'm paying cashless, I'm adding to my basket. So I'm going there to buy Powerball, Mega Millions, Scratch, whatever it is. And because I'm using debit and credit, I'm adding to my basket. I'm adding a can of Coke, I'm adding a magazine, a Snickers bar, whatever it happens to be. So if I'm an owner of, of Rudy's, or I work at Wawa and I'm seeing that people are buying lottery and they're playing with debit, this is really important for me because I can see, hey, there's opportunities here for me to add to that basket for them. So this is a really great finding. The other thing that we sort of see here is that the scratch players are far more likely to buy other items during their lottery retailer purchase. And that's no great surprise. We see the big casings, Mike from Rudy's will tell us later, he's got something about 248 different scratch off bins. I mean, that's incredible. So it's very, I'm walking into a retailer, I'm seeing the visual stimulation and I'm wanting to add. So it's really not a great surprise there. The one thing here is that, even our core players, they're somewhat driven by their lottery purchase. So they're very much going in there to buy lottery. Okay, so if I'm a core player, I'm walking there to buy lottery and then I'm adding to that. I'm not necessarily as likely to go in there and buy something else and then add lottery to it. A core player is traditionally walking into the store to buy lottery and then adding to the basket. So I've told you that it's our core players who are going cashless. I've also told you that people are adding to their basket. But the last takeaway I want to give you is that the role of the retailer is all encompassing. As I showed you with that earlier graphic, there is so much there for the retailer to do. They've got to stock things, they've got to keep things on the shelf, they've got to answer questions, they've got to be an expert across so many fields. But the big gap here is that players are looking for more from the lottery. Why do I say that? Okay, so we wanted to ask players, here's different things that might happen during a regular transaction. I might want to learn about a game. I might want to know more about the odds. I might want to know more about some promotions or offers or information on these new games. I might need help redeeming or winning ticket or assistance with a vending machine. So who's responsible for this part of the transaction? Well, the first key finding is the player doesn't think they're responsible at all for that part of the transaction. Who do they think is responsible? And who is the most part of the expectation? Whose shoulders do that sit on? Well, players tell us when it comes to learning about the games, explaining the odds, promotions and offers, and information on new games, it's solely reliant upon the lottery to share that information. Players want the lottery to explain the odds to them. Players want the lottery to teach them about new games and to tell them how to play certain scratch tickets. What are they looking for from a retailer? Well, the players are telling us that they expect, the retailer expects them to help them redeem their winning tickets and assistance with the vending machine. So really around once I'm in the store and either executing the transaction or redeeming my winning ticket. But is that actually what's happening? Well, the reality is no, it's not. The retailer is the one that's teaching them about the games. The retailer is the one that's explaining the odds. The retailer is explaining to the player about, here's a new game today and here's this offer and here's this promotion. There's a massive disconnect right now in the expectation between what the lottery is providing to the retailers and what the retailer is delivering to the player. So there's a really big divide there. And there's no doubt that, people such as Lance are constantly trying to engage with their retailers to help them understand how can we be a better partner to you. The other thing that I wanted to talk about today is the impact of the COVID and the transaction and what it means from a payment perspective. We talked a lot before about how the fact that payment is transitioning more towards cashless. But what does that mean? So we asked players, here's a number of different statements about their satisfaction with their transaction. Is it easy to find scratch offs? Do the displays allow me to find new games, et cetera, et cetera? There's a lot of different things here that help us understand what does that transaction look like. And I don't want to focus on the numbers here. I want to focus on the pattern. What this pattern tells me, if I'm going in there to buy lottery, either exclusively or to add to the basket, I'm really happy with the transaction. But if I'm going in there to buy something else and adding lottery to my basket, I need a little bit more work. So there's definitely some work to do here from a lottery perspective in assisting the retailer in better engaging with those impulsive players. The people who are walking in there with a planned purchase to buy lottery, we're good. But when it comes to the impulsive player, those people aren't as satisfied and their expectations aren't quite being as met as well when it comes to the transaction. So there's a little bit of work to be done there. And the last thing I want to do is, courtesy of some of our good friends there at Carmana, is looking at some of those digital signs, is understanding who's encouraged to play when they see those digital signs. We can see here, if I put a digital sign out there and the names of the winners jump, and this influences our core players and our scratch players. If I put some information on the games out there, again, it's the core players who are influenced. And again, we're trying to squeeze the lemon a little bit further here. We know that our core players are really engaged in the category. How do we help them with that? But do you know who else is encouraged by digital signs? It's the cashless players. If I'm going in there and I'm buying, regardless of whether or not I'm going in there to buy lottery and then adding something else, or if I'm going in there to buy something else and adding lottery, it's the cashless players who tell us they're far more encouraged by these digital signs. And that's a really good finding, particularly given the fact we're always trying to add to our basket. So what are the three things I want you to take away from today's presentation? The first thing is that, bricks and mortar aren't going anywhere. We are, as I said, is the best part of 14 states right now who regulate online gaming. There's other states who have Jackpocket and other, third-party apps. But bricks and mortar is not going anywhere. COVID does not by any means represent the death of bricks and mortar. The second thing is, as I alluded to earlier, there's been a dramatic shift towards cashless, and those people who are using cashless payments are adding to their basket. Again, this is a really positive finding for retailers everywhere. And the third thing is the role of the retailer is all encompassing, but there needs to be more support there from the lottery in supporting both the player as well as supporting both the retailer as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Simon, who's going to lead the panel.
Thank you, Jason. That was excellent. So, panelists, Lance, Mike, and Bob. I'm going to start off with Lance, go to the lottery side. So what key actions have you taken as an organization to help lottery sales during COVID in these changing times?
Sure. Thanks for having us. Thanks for getting us all organized. So out in Washington, we're heavily vended, probably the most vended state in the United States. And so we have really tried to optimize our vending machines and any of the other multimedia components that we have that are part of our gaming system to really educate players on what's going on. COVID came on quick out here, as most people know. I believe the first case was out here in Washington, and we pivoted quick. We were told we were going to go home for just a couple of weeks, and it's now been almost a year. So, yeah, we have quickly transitioned. Our sales reps are at home, working from home. They're on a modified visit schedule now, but initially, we really had to lean on our marketing side of the house to message to players that were still visiting retail for groceries and things like that. And so, we tried to, as an organization, kind of lead with compassion and patience, and really ask that our district sales representatives communicate differently with their retailers, reaching out either via text, email, and stuff like that, and communicating what may be coming down initially and in the long term after the 2 weeks had passed. So I relied a lot on the vending machines. It's a great big display in most of our stores, our largest stores, where we're going to be able to intersect most of those players, and we've continued that effort for almost a year now.
That's great. Mike, any thoughts on this with Rudy's?
We were little slow on those couple months, and then we were back to normal. So, it didn't impact that much to my business.
Okay. And Bob from Wawa?
Awesome, thank you. And to kind of mirror on what Lance was mentioning, for Wawa, we are 100% sales through kiosk. So, one of the big focuses we had in terms of response to COVID directly is just generally in our stores, we implemented a process called Clean Force. And basically what that is that we are wiping down every surface once an hour. We've relaxed on that a little bit as far as the requirements, but the process is in place just to make sure that customers have confidence in utilizing the kiosk and the touchscreen, that they are clean and disinfected, and being mindful of what those traffic patterns are. We noticed that a lot of customers were going after products that were, that they were in theory touching, they were the only ones touching them. So the kiosk kind of posed a little bit of an obstacle for us in that regard, but making sure that we are visibly working with the customers and cleaning those kiosks was helpful. So, I mean, being in touch with what the customers are looking for is critical.
Thanks, Bob. So again, each of you, just looking back over the past year, what's the one thing you're most surprised at with lottery and COVID?
I would say the way my business has been structured. I talked to you earlier, like, the drive-through. My drive-through got more busier than in-person people coming into the store.
So do you want to just tell us a little bit more about that drive-through, Mike?
It's exclusively only for lotteries. Anything you want, scratch-offs, online games, anything you want, any tickets you want, you come drive-through. It's nothing like when you go to the fast food, there is nothing you take order. You just come straight to the window. So they tell us anything they want on the window. They can still see the boxes which I have. And most of my customers are regular customers. They know the box number. They tell me, like, give me the ticket from box number 231 or 261. They know what ticket I do have on that box. So it's more easy and fast convenience for customers to come in and out quicker. Sometimes what happens is, like, they take ticket, go out in the parking, scratch it, come back again to the drive-through, cash it, buy it again. They go on the parking lot again, they scratch it, come back if they win. So they do come multiple times. So
Sure.
during the COVID, the drive-through does really help us.
And Bob, I know Wawa just recently opened their first drive-through store, if I'm not wrong.
That is correct.
And do you think there's any plans to incorporate lottery within that realm further down the line?
There's definitely a possibility. I know, just to kind of go back onto your initial question around some of the surprising things is 10%. We had 10% growth year over year in 2020 versus 2019 in lottery, where we didn't see growth holistically in any other category in our stores year over year. And there's a couple of things that we noticed about customer behaviors. The customers were coming in with the intent of, I want to get in and out as quickly as possible, which means that their intention when they walked in the door was to purchase lottery. And initially, prior to COVID, we were thinking that more of our customers were coming in for other products and impulsively buying lottery, where that's not the case. I mean, they're coming in with the intent to purchase. And we were still seeing some customers that were being captured by, obviously, a nice jackpot run towards the end of 2020, but just the new games and the digital signage, et cetera. But really, the customers were coming in with the intent, I want to get in and out within 3 minutes, which is about half the time that they would usually spend in our stores. And like I said, there was still a year-over-year growth, which tells me clearly the customers that were coming into our stores had the intention of purchasing lottery while they were in there, and it was part of their basket. And then, to your point, their baskets also grew and expanded because our customer count was down, but our sales were still pretty strong in general.
That's great. So thinking now about just the immediate future, and again, I'll go back to Lance here. Where do you see your lottery business in 6 months' time, when we hope that the worst of COVID will be over and life will be getting it back to a little bit of normalcy?
Well, I see record sales. Speaking to Jason's first point of the brick and mortar is not going anywhere. We're strictly brick and mortar out here. We have a very traditional lottery. We don't have an online presence in that you can purchase lottery tickets online currently. and there's really no plans for that. That's not something that's supported from our legislature, although we'd like to dabble in that. That's not the case. So we rely 100% on brick and mortar, and we had record sales. We're up, $80 million in scratch. We had that big jackpot run, I think $40 million in draw, that helped that. But so yeah, I see record sales. I see the need that we're going to have to continue to offer fun and engaging scratch games. Out here, we anticipated, kind of back to your question previous, is we anticipated sales to drop drastically. What happened, which was a little bit unique, is that we have a large tribal presence in Washington, and they chose to go along with the first shutdown out here in Washington with the governor's guidance to shut the state down and shut businesses down. They did as well, and we did acquire some new players. We had the groceries, the essential businesses that stayed open, grocery stores stayed open, and I believe that we had some of those crossover from the casinos, and we've been able to keep them engaged. I think as people get a little bit more comfortable with going out and spending time at retail, that will come back, but we want to work real hard at retaining those. So we anticipate launching more casino style games for that particular player, and hopefully we'll be able to hang on to them and keep our growth on the player base. So we anticipate record sales. So far so good.
So Mike and Bob, so Lance mentioned there, maybe some casino style games. Have you noticed any new players in the lottery realm over the past year or so?
Mine is a little bit different situation. I was in the small stores when I moved. I moved in 2019, so it's very hard for me to tell that I am been seeing new customers, because yes, I am seeing a new customers, because the store which I had before, I was 2 blocks away from the one which I've just built a new location here. That was just a small 1,500 square feet store with minimum about 10 to 12 parkings. But when I moved to the bigger location, 5,000 square feet with more different varieties of the stuff I'm presenting to the customers, like gas, groceries, lotteries, and everything. So since I moved to this new location, yes, I am seeing a lot of new customers. I am seeing the growth of my business as well as my lottery. My lottery sales went, I can say, more than double.
Wow. And Bob, from Wawa's perspective, are you seeing any new customers, do you think, on the lottery side?
Yes. So new game introductions such as Keno and the casino style type of games where there's a drawing every 5 minutes and so on is definitely capturing a new audience within our stores. They look for that more immediate gratification, so to speak, but a little bit more theoretical control than just the randomness of a scratch ticket, if that makes sense, to kind of mirror those two things together, so that they are making selections, so they have some skin in the game, so to speak, rather than just picking which game they want to play with a scratch ticket. But at the same time, they don't purchase that ticket at 8 o'clock in the morning to wait for a drawing at 7 o'clock in the evening. And so a lot of those elements, we're seeing a lot of lift in as far as the online tickets, again, outside of major jackpot pushes. We're seeing a lot of growth in those styles of games.
Yeah, and Leger does some tracking with New Jersey Lottery on that front for both quick draw and cash pop, and we're seeing certainly a big uplift in awareness of both those games in the state, and it's been very healthy. So what do you think, and I'll go back to Bob for this, and what's the biggest barrier to increasing lottery sales at Wawa right now?
Oof, it's a good one. Probably the biggest barrier, in all honesty, is customer awareness and understanding. Again, when you think about, I think scratch also are a game that is easily explained and understood. But when I talk about like the casino style games, Keno, and those types of games, knowing and understanding from a customer's viewpoint of how to play them, how often the drawings are, what drawing you're involved in, and so on. There's some definite education opportunity there for the players. And with our sales model, we rely heavily on the lottery to do that. And I think that that's an opportunity that really is going to, if the lottery can educate customers better on what those games are, how they work, other than just publicizing the fact that they exist, is going to help draw more customer attention to those games, and capitalize on that interest that exists currently.
And how is that on your side, Mike?
I do agree with him. The education, especially in some of the games, customers are not educated. It's very hard to make them understand. Especially the lottery customers are a little bit tougher to handle. Sometimes they come to this clerk and tell them, "Hey, I won," but it is not won. So it takes my 5 minutes. I have a huge line behind him. So, I have to take him on the side and explain him exactly you did not win or something. So, education is very important, especially when it's online game and Powerball with the power play. Customers always ask us, what is power play? Why extra dollar on that game? What is the benefit for me to put another dollar in that game? So maybe 10% people knows exactly what the Powerball power play is or Mega Million Mega Play is. 90% they don't know. Sometimes they just tell, "Oh, just give me $2 ticket." Why? Because they don't know exactly what the Mega Million Mega Player is. So, those kind of areas, yes, lottery has to do something.
Can I jump in there, Simon, and ask a question about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess that's a really great point, Mike. So I guess my question to you is, what do you expect from the lottery in that particular space? Because obviously the lottery wants to help educate, the retailers and the players better. So what, as a super successful lottery retailer, what suggestions would you have for the lottery to help your staff better educate the players, recognizing that's really the lottery's role, but the retailer is the conduit between the lottery and the player. So what would you expect from the lottery in that particular case?
Especially nowadays, they have a social medias. They do run advertisement for new upcoming games and all that stuff. So in between, once a week, they throw some kind of this kind of stuff in the social media or any kind of platform that they can show the customers exactly what this game is about, how you win on this game, why there is an extra dollar for this game, what you will win on this one. If you have that Powerball power play, sometimes it's tough to make them understand you. Like, when you are standing on the register or taking a customers, you don't have enough time. You have to move fast. When you have a like convenience store, people don't like to stand in the line. That is why it's called convenience store. Move in and out in 2 minutes. If you come to Rudy's, you will see how my partners, they work quicker, faster. That's how you can get more sales. If one customer is taking too long, then there's another person in behind him taking another customers. So sometimes on one cash register, 2 people are working.
For sure. I wonder if that's the role of the digital screen, right? The digital screen can demonstrate and showcase the power play, Powerball relationship, as well as the Mega Play and Mega Millions relationship. I'm wondering if something like that would benefit. I'm not sure if it's available in Texas or not, but I'm just wondering if something like that might be of benefit.
Yeah, they do have it, especially in my place. I have 4 machines inside the store, and I got 2 vendings kiosks. So the kiosk does have the screen. So if they constantly run those education kind of things, customer stands and definitely they're going to watch it exactly how the system works or what the game is about.
So Lance.
Yeah, this is our job. Mike and Bob are exactly right. That's why we're a paid guest through the front door. That's what we're supposed to do. The lottery is produces the games. The retailers sell them for us, and so that's our job. So you know, we try to work real hard to do that. We did have a real life example where I think we did a pretty good job out here in Washington and utilized all the multimedia assets that we have. We had a game change with our Hit 5 game, which is a draw game. Essentially had a little game matrix change, and it went to 7 days a week draw. And it was a full court press with our social media, with our track screens. We were all home at the time, so it shows it can be done as long as you place a focus on it. So we saw that the social media aspects, our website was always up to date. People were really engaging with that. And so you can have success and support your retailers from a distance, if you will, but it has to be deliberate and intentional. But no, one of the biggest things that I think we need to learn, the lottery, is not to forget what we've learned during COVID. We've had record sales. Well, I say we, but it's been on the backs of our retailers. I mean, quite honestly. And so, and they've been augmenting and changing their business models. So it would be a shame if we forgot how we got there, and we need to continue to listen and watch. We are in a modified visit schedule out here in Washington, essentially taking care of all the monetary things for our retailers, like picking up partial packs and whatnot like that, making that a priority, and getting whatever information and intel when we're out there and looking and seeing, you know, how have you augmented your business? And we're asking and checking in with weekly calls internally, and communicating, okay, what's it going to look like post-COVID? Are our district sales representatives going to be doing it differently because of our retailer base is going to be doing it differently? We really need to augment to that. So what these two gentlemen said, that's our job, is to manage the channels. So you know, we're doing our best to do that. And I think a lot of lotteries try, but things like this can only help to collaborate and find out, okay, it's not so different in Texas as it is in Washington, because it's all on the backs of retailers, right? I mean, they're all the same. They're getting folks in and out, and they're trying to compete amongst one another. I mean, you have Wawa, which is a giant corporation, and then you have Rudy's, who's just a monster in its own. So they're all vying for that dollar, and we need to do our job to make sure that you know, we're a valued partner in that particular store. So yeah, manage the channel.
So you mentioned managing the channel. So which of the changes that have occurred during COVID do you think are around now for the long haul for the lottery industry?
Well, a couple things. I mean, so our focus out here for our district sales reps, they've really had to place the large majority of their focus on inventory management. We have a you know, an algorithm does an automated order for each one of our retailers, and then it's got some oversight from our district sales representatives. So we've become really good channel managers in that aspect. I think that we need to listen and watch for you know, this touchless transactions. A lot of companies, I mean, Mike talked about a drive-through for lottery only. That's a lot. It's not completely touchless, but it's pretty darn close. And having him talk about people, you know, doing laps around the store, coming back in, we need to find out a way in Washington anyway to do that, whether it be curbside pickup or Instacart or something like that. Debit, we've got an initiative that we're kicking off in Washington, and know we need to get into that space because a large majority of our sales go through the vending machines. We do have redemption on our vending machines, so we're seeing that particular asset, if you will, grow greatly. So it just shows that people are fully supportive of touchless transactions, and the younger our players get, as we have new players come in. I have two daughters that are in their 20s. They don't necessarily need to talk to anybody. They would just as soon take care of the entire transaction on their own. So so we need to continue to figure out how to optimize that space as well. So those particular things. And then again, I think it's really going to be important not to forget what we learned through COVID, because our brick and mortar is still going to be our backbone, especially out here in Washington, because I don't see us going to online anytime real soon. And even at that, we would want to make sure that we produced an online platform that drove the player back to retail. So
Yeah. So Barbara, anything you think that Wawa has done that's going to be around for the long haul from these past 12 months?
Nothing that we necessarily have adjusted to. Kind of going back to some of the things that we've seen that obviously we will be having conversations with our lottery partners. As an example, with the places that are open for dining, you go in and you're not getting a menu anymore. You're getting a QR code where you scan with your phone for a touchless menu. And I think about, customer questions about how to purchase a game. Having it out on social media is good, but then the customer has to know that social media exists, and they have to be able to get to that. Where if I pick up a bet slip or a play slip, whatever you want to call it, and I'm not sure how to play, there's a QR code and I scan it, and there's a video that my phone goes to show me and give me that information. That's informing the customer, and that also eliminates the need to watch a screen and take up space or a spot in the parking lot while I'm waiting for information and content around the game I want to play. So we're working with our lottery partners in different states to try and kind of give them ideas and some of the things that we've noticed and identified, because as much as we get back to normal, it will be a new normal. Customer behaviors will change coming out of COVID. And we want to make sure that we're ahead of that rather than reactive. We were forced to react to COVID. But one thing that we definitely have learned is that we don't want to be as reactive anymore. We want to be proactive and anticipate customer needs, as opposed to react to them telling us and screaming and saying, "Hey, by the way, did you think about this?"
That's great. And Mike, from the Texas perspective?
Yeah, that is a good idea about QR code and all that stuff. But here, my totally, especially at Rudy's, we have a totally different way of operating than the other stores, how they operate or how they are. It's like, I'm just a single store owner. So I have only one focus to do, the communication between the customers and it's by, you can say 95% of my customers, I know them by name. So they love to come to the counter instead of going to kiosk. So,
And has that relationship, has it changed at all? That intimate relationship during COVID?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you think that's been very positive then for the industry as a whole?
Yes, I think, especially on those kind of stuff, my experience is different than the other places, so our timings got a little changed because of the COVID. We were closing a little early and all that stuff. But as far as the customers, the communications and all that stuff, it did not really impact to us that much.
Okay. All right. Now, just thinking about a little bit more long term now, do we think that players will revert back to their pre-COVID routines, or do you think there are parts of their routines that they've had in the past year that's going to remain moving forward? I'll go back to you, Mike, for that.
I think the way I see right now, everything feels here like back to normal. Couple months, everybody was panicked, even me.
Yeah.
How is going to affect my other businesses, because I have many other business like many other stores also who we sell lotteries. I have many convenience stores, but Rudy's is a little bit different than my other convenience store which I own. This is a little bit different the way it's been planned here. How we do here, it's like, when customers walks in, the customer is walking in here is for lottery, and then he buys some other stuff. My other businesses they coming to get groceries and any other stuff and buying lottery. So when they walk into Rudy's, their first choice is the lottery. That's why they are walking into the Rudy's. not any other products what I have been offering them, you know. So at Rudy's is a little bit different. The way the environment is here, I'm having, you know, during the COVID, I have to take off all my lounge. I have here sitting, people sit here and stretch. I have a huge, maybe like 15 to 12 chairs, bar stools, days to sit. I have a couch where they can watch the game, sit there, play their tickets, scratch the tickets. But during the COVID, I have to take those off for quite 3-4 months. So how the CDC guidelines get more easy, I keep pushing those things back to normal.
Okay. All right. Maybe Lance, you could take this one. So how do you think state lotteries and retailers can work together better in the future to benefit both the core and the casual player?
Sure. I think it's playing out, quite honestly, right here on this webinar. I mean, you have Rudy's, who operates one way, Wawa operates through a kiosk. I think what it shows is there's multiple offshoots to that channel. They're all brick and mortar. There's multiple offshoots, but we need to be the lottery needs to be aware of that. That's exactly, we need to be more than one dimensional. Yes, we should be providing QR codes and quick access to how to play games and on the different things, but we also need to be able to satisfy what Mike's doing at Rudy's, and that's more of an experience. Specifically to lottery, it sounds like. Not to say that Wawa is not. I'm fully aware of how they facilitate their sales through their kiosks, and it's phenomenal in its own right. But I think that's exactly kind of the magic in this, is talking about and listening and hearing how different channels or different offshoots of the channel, if you will, need support. And again, it gets back to, that is our job. We need to be able to bring that communication back to our organization and say, okay, look, we have these different kinds of channels, and we need to provide resources to all of them. We have some of the similar things happening out here in Washington. We have an independent retailer who's in our top 5 now, that it's in the parking lot of a huge grocery store chain, and they operate the exact same way. They place a full court press, 100% focus on lottery when they walk in the door, and then other things as well. So I think we need to keep it fun and engaging. It's our responsibility to put games out there that are fun and engaging, that have maybe some second chance aspects to them if we have those in your state. So it extends the play, but then ultimately drives them back to buy more. So that's what I would see our responsibility is over the next 6, 9, 12 months, to not only the casual player but the core player.
And Bob at Wawa, how do you think Wawa can do with that relationship with the state lotteries that you deal with?
I would agree. I think that from a lottery's perspective, different selling styles, selling methods are going to reach different sets of customers. Obviously, the more variety that the lottery in and of itself can offer to their customers, the better. In terms of how that fits into our business model, I mean, there are certain players that we don't capture because we don't sell over the counter. And we're comfortable with that, and we're comfortable with our selling model, and we certainly don't want any of our states to go that direction completely, because I think that would hurt us more than help us as an individual business, and that would hurt a lot of their other retailers. But for Wawa, it's from the lottery's perspective, is again just bringing about awareness for that independent purchase, to make sure that the customer knows and understands how to make the purchase, so that they don't feel intimidated by a sale through a kiosk. And then also too, again, for the over-the-counter retailers to also be able to support them, so that interaction is positive, exciting, and fun. I mean, lottery is a fun product. You know what I mean? It's designed to be exciting and be fun, and the more that the lotteries can keep that persona, that's going to benefit not only the lotteries but all the retailers as well.
Okay, I have one final question from me before I get to any questions from the audience. And this goes to all four of you. So Jason, you are not excluded. In fact, we'll start with Jason. So everyone's enjoying record lottery sales right now. You know, obviously it's been helped by the large Powerball and Mega Millions jackpots, but scratch is on the up. Things have been very positive. What one thing do you think will happen post-COVID with lottery?
It's a really tough question, but I think I'm not sure there's one thing to answer the question. I think that there's certainly going to be a greater transition to cashless. I think that we've seen that, you know, people who are buying cashless are adding to their basket. Obviously, not every jurisdiction offers cashless right now, so I think the continual transition towards cashless is going to continue, and it has to continue. By the same token, I also think that there's going to be more acceptance of online within each individual jurisdiction. I think that's a big part of it. But I want to touch on something that Mike talked about before, and that is the experience part of it. I mean, one of the challenges about lottery traditionally has been the absence of an experience. It's transactionally based. You walk in, you walk out, you scratch it at home, and then you go back and check the ticket again. I think potentially there's an opportunity for lotteries to sort of be more experiential in their offering, and I'm wondering how that might look moving forward. So that's a little bit more spitballing, but I definitely think it's along those lines.
That's great. Lance, your thought? What's your one key?
Yeah. I'm not going to get too far away from what Jason said. I do think that cashless / touchless is going to be important for the lotteries to figure out in partnership with our retailers. So, you know, as an example, in Washington, we're heavily vended, and we're going to be moving down an initiative to offer debit on those machines. We currently have redemption on those machines, and that's all saving. You know, our job is to save the retailer time and money, because time is money. And so when we can have folks redeeming those tickets on our vending machines, that's, you know, that's cutting down on that 2 minutes in and out that Mike was talking about with Rudy's. You know, they can take care of that particular part of the transaction loop at the machine, and promoting that. I think that it'd be interesting if the lottery got in the space of like Instacart or curbside pickup. There were some colleagues of mine here in Washington. We talked about Uber Scratch at one point in time. What would that look like? You know, it kind of sounds funny when you're talking about that, but it's not that far outside the realm of what could happen. We currently have 33 district sales representatives that are out in communities and whatnot. So can you imagine for a moment that you know, they signed up for Uber Scratch, if you will, and they associate that with their favorite retailer. Maybe it's Rudy's. And if we drove those sales back to that particular location, as an example, not that far outside the realm. So don't know what it's going to look like, but I definitely think touchless, cashless is going to be something that we're going to have to figure out, especially in Washington.
And Mike, from your perspective, and Rudy's?
I think if we, you know, especially at Rudy's, we don't do cashless. We don't offer debit or credit to buy the tickets. The reason is the margin. You know, if customer comes in, walk in, and I have seen a lot of people asking me during this COVID, it has been significantly increased by customers asking about debit or credit for buying a scratch offs, and we don't offer that. The reason is every dollar we make 5 cents on that ticket. The credit processing charges 3.25. I'm going to lose money. If lottery increase my commission to 10 cents, yes, I will offer them. I've been to a lot of Texas lotteries. They are, you know, not webinar, but like they do have a conference, and I do participate in them. And every time I participate, I tell them to increase the commission of the retailers, because, you know, it is really a tough for not retailers but customers as well.
Yeah.
It's not convenient. You will see the customers go to different stores buying the tickets, but I'm telling you, 85% of the stores, they don't cash tickets. This is though they don't have money. I'm telling, I always tell them, the retail Texas Lottery, you need to do something, especially like us. We don't say no to anybody. Is it my customers not? They buy somewhere else, come to cash at Rudy's, I cash it. That's what I serve. That's what I do. That's what we do the service. The way we do, that customers now next time is not going to go to the other stores. They will come find Rudy's. They drive 10, 15 miles to come to Rudy's. Why? There are many retailers when you drive through, when you drive on the street, you will see nowadays 1 mile, you will see 5 to 6 gas stations or 5 to 6 convenience stores. Why they want to come to Rudy's? Because they get that kind of service. Because they know Rudy will not say no. We'll take it. But my always fighting with them is like, you need to do something or pay the retailers to cash the ticket. So your customer will not have to drive around everywhere.
Sure.
So those are the situation, it's like I would love to have debit or credit at my business, but it makes me stop somewhere because of the commission. I'm going to lose money on those. That is the only issue I have in that. Otherwise, if I start taking it by 30% or 35%, my sales will be increased.
And Bob from Wawa?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think cashless is a big move, as well as online in general, to be able to purchase. I know that we've been approached by a couple of states about sales online and connecting that back to the retailer. I think that that's a big important key, not only for us as retailers, but also for the customer. That way it feels a little bit more authentic to them. But for cashless, we do have some of our states, and not all of our stores in those states, but Pennsylvania does offer a debit solution through the kiosks for purchases. And when we do open that up, we do see a significant lift. And coming out of COVID, I think that there are more and more people. There was a move towards using less cash pre-COVID, and more people using credit and debit cards. And COVID has definitely transitioned even more people to those types of payment options, as well as things like PayPal and Venmo, et cetera. But also the online component, and be able to play conveniently from home. I think that the important component there again is still having a retailer component. So we have seen situations where when we sign somebody up, and we are the retailer that they chose to sign up through for being able to play their lottery online, we get a commission off of their sales. There's been different criterias, 3% for the first year, a flat rate that we get every time somebody signs up, and so on. But again, for that customer, it's really, there's still a connection to that brick and mortar, and they feel confident because they're connected more to the retailer than they are to the state lottery. And I think that that's one of the important components to, for the lotteries to know and understand that, the trusted partners, especially when I think about Wawa and our immense success in the lottery business, is our customers walk in the door and they have a lot of trust and faith in us as a retailer. And now that we carry lottery, they kind of transition that trust and faith over to the lottery, where we have shown that we have increased lottery playership, as opposed to taking away from other retailers, which was, in every state, one of the lottery's fears, that we were just going to cannibalize other sales, and we're not. So we're actually, the brick and mortar is that feel good connection to the product, rather than the connection to the product of itself, and they just so happen to purchase through the brick and mortar.
So I have one quick question. So it's to you, Bob. So does Wawa have a loyalty program? I know you do. Is lottery part of that loyalty program?
Yes, we do have a rewards program, and currently lottery is not part of that.
Okay. Well, everybody, this has been fantastic. We're at the 59th minute, so I wish to thank all of you for your time today. So Lance Anderson out there in Washington, Mike Presler, and the wonderful Rudy's, which I know I'm going to have to come and see now down in Texas. Bob Hornberger from Wawa, thank you so much for your input. You know, my hometown of New Jersey is a big Wawa. We have 3 Wawas just in our town alone. And Jason Allsopp, thank you so much for the wonderful data that really kicked this off. I hope everybody had got something out of this webinar today on retail and lottery. We'll be sending out the deck of results to everybody after this. And please don't hesitate to get in touch if you want to talk retail, and especially if you want to talk lottery research. So I'm Simon Jaworski. Thanks very much and have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.